The glass shattered before he truly registered the sound. A thin, crystalline crack followed by the soft gasp of a woman's voice, trembling and hushed. Water spread across polished black marble, reflecting the chandelier light like frozen lightning. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, the words thin and brittle. I didn't mean." Min-Jae Han turned his head calmly, slowly, like a man who had learned long ago that sudden movements only encouraged fear. His reputation, born in the blood-soaked backbone of Seoul's underground and sharpened through the ruthless corporate skyline of Manhattan, arrived in every room several seconds before he did. People expected rage, violence, punishment. But his voice was quiet. Always quiet. "It's just water," he said. Yet she didn't look up. She kept her head bowed, gathering broken glass with shaking hands like someone terrified to be seen idle. Her fingers trembled uncontrollably, dark curls falling forward to shield her face. And then he saw it. One teardrop falling, hitting the marble beside the water with an audible tap. Not from the spill. Not from fear of him. Something older. Something breaking. Footsteps shifted behind him, the guards stiffening, waiting for his command. Every movement in the room froze, tense as wire. No one cried in front of Min-Jae Han. No one dared. But she wasn't looking for permission. She looked like someone who had already lost everything. For a moment he forgot the meeting, the men seated at the long conference table, the millions of dollars of trafficking routes and casino partnerships spread across documents before him. He forgot the power he wore like armor. He just stared. The single mother, he didn't know her name then, only that she served coffee in the high-rise corporate building that masked his operation, pressed shaking palms against the floor, gathering glass bare-handed. Her skin broke, a thin line of blood beating along her thumb. She flinched but didn't stop. "Leave it," he said. She froze. The room's oxygen thinned. He rose slowly, chairs scraping behind him as his men reflexively stood with him. He crossed the room, polished shoes silent on marble. He crouched beside her and her breath hitched, not out of awe but pure instinctive fear. His fingers wrapped gently around her wrist. "You'll cut yourself," he murmured. Finally she looked up. Eyes, deep brown, rimmed red from tears she was trying desperately to hide. A bruise faded beneath makeup along her cheekbone. Hardly visible unless someone lived with violence long enough to recognize its shape. He did. Her lips parted, voice barely sound. "I'm sorry. Please don't fire me. I really need." "Stop." The word came out softer than he meant it to. Behind him, someone cleared their throat. Business waited. Footsteps echoed toward the door. "Boss, the truck shipment." "Out," Min-Jae said, voice sharp enough to cut stone. The room emptied so quickly it felt like wind leaving a building. Silence returned, thick and strangely private. She looked down again, shoulders curled inward like she expected a blow. "What's your name?" he asked. She swallowed. "Aaliyah." "Aaliyah," he repeated, letting the syllables settle in the air between them. "Look at me." She did. Reluctantly. Bravely. No one had looked at him like that in years, like she saw beyond his tailored suit, beyond the legend, beyond the word mafia whispered like a curse. She looked at him like a man. Not a king. Not a monster. A man. She blinked and another tear escaped, streaking down the side of her face. She wiped it away instantly, embarrassed. "I'll pay for the glass. Please, I really can't afford to lose this job. My daughter." Her voice broke completely. A sound small enough to shatter him. Min-Jae felt something unfamiliar tug in his chest. The building temperature shifted somewhere deep inside him, thawing frozen ground he thought was permanent. He didn't understand the reaction, and that alone unsettled him more than any gun pointed at his head ever had. "Do you think I would fire someone for a broken glass?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer. But her silence told him she'd survived men who would. "Did someone hurt you?" he asked. Her spine stiffened instinctively. "I'm fine." The lie was almost elegant. People with trauma learned to craft them like armor. His eyes lowered to her bleeding hand. He reached into his coat and removed a small bandage packet. Always prepared, habit formed from years of patching bullet wounds in cars and alleys. He gently took her hand again. "May I?" She hesitated, then nodded. Her skin was warm, trembling beneath his touch. He cleaned the cut with delicate precision as though she might crumble. When he finished, she whispered, "Thank you." 2 simple words, yet they felt heavier than every oath of loyalty he had ever commanded. He stood and reached down, offering his hand to help her up. She hesitated, then placed her palm against his. Her fingertips cold, her pulse fast. When she rose, she nearly slipped on the water slick and instinctively grabbed his suit lapel for balance. For a breathtaking second, her face was inches from his chest, her breath trembling against him. He smelled lavender in her hair. Soft, clean, human. His guard knocked once on the doorframe. "Boss. They're waiting downstairs." He exhaled slowly. Business, control, power. The world he built on bones and blood. But as he released her hand, he felt the faint sting of her dried tears on his skin. He cleared his throat. "Go home for the day. Take care of your daughter." Aaliyah frowned, confused. "But I need the hours." "I'll pay you for the full day," he said. "I can't take charity," she whispered. "It isn't charity." His voice dropped. "It's respect. And it's final." Her eyes widened and something shifted there, not gratitude but recognition. She nodded slowly and stepped back, gathering her bag. As she reached the door, he heard the smallest, most fragile sound escape her lips. "Thank you, Mr. Han." When she disappeared down the hallway, silence poured over him again, heavy, suffocating, unfamiliar. His lieutenant stepped forward cautiously. "Boss, who is she?" Min-Jae stared at the door she'd walked through. "I don't know," he said. "But I intend to." And for the first time in years, something inside him whispered a warning he hadn't felt since he was a boy. "Careful. She could ruin you." But another voice answered, low and dangerous. "Maybe that's exactly what you need." He turned his back to the table of criminals, power brokers and blood-stained contracts waiting for signature. For the first time in a decade, he felt his pulse remind him he was alive. A single tear on his hand had undone a man feared across 3 countries. Min-Jae Han, the king of the New York Korean syndicate, had just fallen, quietly without witness, the way all wars begin. And he didn't even know her story yet. But he would. Even if it cost him everything. The city roared beneath him like a living beast, steel veins of traffic coursing through Manhattan's midnight arteries. From the penthouse terrace of the Han Tower, the skyline glittered in sharp geometries, fierce and cold, exactly like the world he ruled. But Min-Jae wasn't seeing the city. He was seeing her face. Aaliyah. The way she had whispered her apology like someone expecting punishment. The bruise beneath her makeup. The way she had tried, desperately, to hold herself together while the world crumbled inside her. He had seen many things break. Men, lives, cities, but nothing had struck him the way her silent tears had. It wasn't weakness. It was survival worn thin. He poured himself a drink, amber liquor catching the light. It tasted like dust in his mouth. His lieutenant, Young Soo, stepped beside him, shoulders squared, voice cautious. "Boss, your silence is more dangerous than your anger." Min-Jae didn't look away from the skyline. "Did you find out who she is?" "Yes. Aaliyah Carter. 27. Works 2 jobs. Morning shift at the cafe downstairs, night cleaning at a private medical office in Midtown. Single mother. Daughter named Zariah, 6 years old. No criminal record. Lives in Harlem. Rent overdue 2 months. Min-Jae closed his eyes only for a moment. Not enough to show weakness, only enough to absorb the sting. "What about family?" he asked. "No parents. No siblings. No partner." But Young Soo shifted, suddenly uneasy. There is a restraining order. Filed 5 months ago. Against Marcus Hale. The name sparked instantly. He knew that type. Street-level enforcer for the Bronx Kings gang. Known for violence. Known for leaving scars. And where is he now? Min-Jae asked. Out. Released last month. The glass in his hand tightened until his knuckles whitened. The air on the rooftop thinned, sharp and metallic. He felt something old rise in him, something he'd spent years burying, rage not for business or territory but something far more personal. He forced his voice steady. Give me everything on Marcus. Quietly. If he goes near her again. We'll handle it, Young Soo said. Min-Jae's jaw tensed. No. I will handle it. Young Soo stared at him, startled. Boss, that's not. She cried. Min-Jae said, voice low, dangerous, steady. And not because of me. That is enough. He turned away, commanding without words. The conversation ended. But the war that had been sleeping inside him had just awakened. The next morning he arrived at the building earlier than usual, a strange decision, unplanned but unavoidable. His footsteps echoed through the glass atrium, soft jazz humming through the polished air. Workers stiffened, nodding with reverent fear. He never came without purpose. And today he had one. She stood at the cafe counter, arranging cups, hair tied back loosely, dark curls escaping to brush her jawline. Her uniform sleeves were rolled up, revealing faint bruises on her arms like shadows that refused to fade. She didn't see him approach at first. She was humming under her breath, soft, hesitant, the kind of sound someone makes to keep themselves intact. Aaliyah, he said quietly. Her head snapped up. Surprise widened her eyes before shifting into instinctive caution. Mr. Han. Good morning. Her voice was polite, professional, and forced. She wiped her hands quickly and smoothed her apron, trying to compose herself. She was always preparing for judgment. I'm sorry about yesterday, she continued. I was tired and I shouldn't have lost control like that. Lost control. As if crying were a crime. He stepped closer, careful not to crowd her, but close enough that she couldn't hide behind distance. You don't have to apologize for being human, he said. She blinked, stunned by the gentleness. People like him weren't supposed to speak softly. He studied her eyes. She looked exhausted, the kind of tired that sat deeper than the bones. The kind that came from fear. Are you all right? He asked. I'm fine, she said quickly, the same lie as yesterday. He waited. The silence stretched. Finally she exhaled. It's just been a long week, she whispered. Aaliyah, he said, voice low. If someone is hurting you. No, the answer was sharp, too fast. A reflex. She swallowed. No one is. I don't need help. People who didn't need help were often the ones drowning. He changed the subject gently. How's your daughter? A soft light entered her gaze, like dawn breaking faintly through storm clouds. She's good. She loves school. She loves singing. She's obsessed with drawing pictures of butterflies everywhere she can. Her smile was small but real. He felt something inside him shift. Do you sing? He asked. She laughed, a fluttering sound she seemed startled to hear herself make. Only when I'm trying to get her to sleep. I'm terrible at it. He shook his head. I don't believe that. The flush that touched her cheeks felt like an unexpected sunrise. Can I ask something? She said cautiously. Why are you being so kind to me? He didn't answer immediately. Power always demanded caution, and he could not give her the truth, not the whole truth, not yet. Because someone should be, he said. Her breath caught as if she didn't know how to receive that. He could feel eyes watching them, workers pretending not to stare, security guards alert. His presence here changed the gravity of the room. He stepped back. I need a coffee, he said, tone casual, restoring the balance she needed. Her shoulders relaxed just slightly. Of course. The usual? He nodded. She made it with careful hands, precise movements. When she passed the cup to him, their fingers brushed, A tiny contact but electric. She drew back instinctively, pulse flickering at her throat. "Thank you," he said. "Have a good day, Mr. Han," she whispered. He walked away, but every step felt heavier. Outside the cafe doors, young Soo leaned against the wall, arms crossed. His expression spoke volumes. The lieutenant waited until they were in the elevator before talking. "Boss, you never order your own coffee." "Today I did," Min-Jae replied. "And is that why we're risking a very real war with the Bronx Kings? Because of a woman pouring coffee in the lobby?" Min-Jae turned his gaze slowly toward him. "Say that again." Young-Soo swallowed. "She's not from our world. If Marcus Hale is involved, then she's already caught in a violent one. Getting close to her will put a target on her back." "She already has one," Min-Jae said. "I'm just going to remove it." Young-Soo fell silent. The elevator doors opened to the top-floor private office, walls lined with glass that reflected the ruthless skyline. His desk waited, towering, elegant, heavy with responsibility and blood. Meetings filled the day, partnership deals, threats, bribes, diplomacy veiled as cruelty. But every time silence fell, he heard her voice again. "I don't need help." And every time he knew it wasn't true. By late afternoon his phone buzzed. Young Soo stepped in without knocking. "Boss. We found Marcus Hale." Min-Jae set his pen down slowly. "Where?" "At a bar in the Bronx. He's been asking about her. Asking where she works. He's planning something." The world narrowed to a single point. "Prepare the car," Min-Jae said. "Boss, you're going personally?" "Yes." "That's dangerous." "So am I." Young Soo nodded once and left. Min-Jae stood before the window. Manhattan glowed below him, all glitter, no soul. Aaliyah's face flashed through his mind again, that moment when her tears had slipped free, unguarded. He had built an empire on brutality, on being untouchable. His heart had been quiet for years, locked away where memory could not reach it. But the look in her eyes had cracked it open. And through that fracture, something alive had begun to breathe. Rain started as he arrived at the Bronx bar. The downpour sheeted across broken asphalt, neon reflecting in violent streaks of red and blue. Guards stepped aside without a word, guns holstered but tense. Inside, the bar stank of sweat and smoke and spilled beer. Marcus Hale leaned against the counter, laughter too loud, voice too aggressive. A scar split his eyebrow. Muscle. Arrogance without intelligence. He didn't see Min-Jae enter. Men cleared the way instinctively, recognizing danger even if they didn't know its name. The music thudded like a heartbeat losing rhythm. Min-Jae stopped 2 feet behind him. Marcus Hale. The man stiffened, turning slowly. When he saw Min-Jae he smirked, an expression born of stupidity, not courage. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Han himself. To what do I owe the honor?" Min-Jae's voice was quiet. "Stay away from Aaliyah Carter." Marcus laughed, ugly and sharp. "What, that little bitch? She yours now." In a blink, Min-Jae's hand wrapped around his throat, crushing him against the wall. Bottles shattered and men jumped back. Marcus choked, face reddening. "If you ever speak her name like that again," Min-Jae whispered, "I will cut out your tongue and feed it to the river." Marcus gasped, grasping at his grip. "She's nothing, what do you care?" His fury sharpened like glass. "She is not nothing," Min-Jae said. "And if you go near her or her daughter, I will end you before you take your next breath." He released him. Marcus collapsed, coughing violently. "You think she wants your help?" Marcus spat. "She hates people like you. You think she'll look at you without seeing a monster?" Min-Jae didn't flinch. "Maybe," he said. "But at least I won't be the reason she cries." He turned and walked away, rain soaking his coat as he stepped outside. Lightning cracked above the skyline. He had started a war. And he didn't regret it. Hours later, near midnight, he stood again at the railing of his penthouse, the storm hammering the glass. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. he answered. Mr. Han? Aaliyah's voice soft and shaking. I just wanted to say thank you. Someone paid my rent today. I don't know who, but it saved us from being evicted. He closed his eyes. I see. And, her voice trembled. I don't know how, but Marcus, he stopped calling. He stopped showing up. It's like he disappeared. Silence stretched between them, fragile and full. Did you do something? She whispered. I removed a problem, he said. Why? She asked, voice breaking. Why would you do that for me? He answered honestly. Because you shouldn't have to survive the world alone. A long breath, trembling and raw. Mr. Han, she said softly. My name is Aaliyah. You don't have to call me anything else. He felt something unarmored break open in his chest. Then you should call me Min-Jae, he replied. Another silence, warm now, unspoken and powerful. Good night, Min-Jae, she whispered. Good night, Aaliyah. The call ended. But the world had changed. Not through bullets. Not through power. Through connection. The most dangerous transformation of all. And standing alone above the glittering, ruthless city, Min-Jae Han finally let himself admit something he had never said aloud. He wanted her. Not possession. Not conquest. Not obedience. He wanted her trust. Her voice. Her laughter. He wanted to be the man she believed existed somewhere beneath the scars. And he would become that man. Even if it destroyed the empire he built. Because for the first time in his life, nothing mattered more. Not power. Not fear. Not even survival. Only her. 3 days passed before he saw Aaliyah again. Not because he didn't try. He found himself walking through the lobby more often than necessary, lingering near the cafe under the pretense of reviewing operations or checking security. But each time she wasn't there. Different staff members served drinks. The barista said she had called out sick. He told himself it was none of his concern, that distance was safer, for both of them. He had wars to manage, shipments to negotiate, power to maintain. He had no time to indulge distraction. And yet every time he dismissed his own thoughts, they returned with twice the force. The way her voice shook when she spoke of her daughter. The way she tried to hide her tears as though she believed she wasn't allowed to break. The way she had said his name, Min-Jae, as if she weren't afraid. The fourth morning when he walked through the lobby, she was there. Not behind the counter, standing near the entrance, holding a small pink lunchbox decorated with butterflies. Her coat was soaked at the shoulders from the rain outside. She was breathless, cheeks flushed from running. When she saw him, she startled slightly. Her hand tightened around the lunchbox. She looked like someone preparing to be turned away. Good morning, she said softly. Her voice was hesitant but warm. Hopeful maybe. He stepped closer. Are you all right? Yes. I had to bring something to one of the doctors upstairs. She lifted the lunchbox slightly, explaining. My daughter forgot this at home. She'll cry if she doesn't have it today. He nodded. Something about that small detail struck him in a place he wasn't accustomed to feeling. Tenderness cutting through the armor he had hardened over decades. How is she? He asked. Excited about her school recital tonight. Aaliyah smiled faintly. She's been practicing all week. It's her first time performing in front of a crowd. That's important, he said. It is. Pause. I'm nervous. She gets stage fright. She might freeze up and cry. He studied her, the projection of worry etched into every detail. Her eyebrows slightly drawn, her fingers tapping the lunchbox, her breath shallow with unspoken fear. You'll be there, he said. That's enough for her. Her eyes softened, searching his. Would you like to meet her one day? She asked quietly, as if afraid even to suggest it. The question hit harder than expected. No one asked him simple human things. People requested power, protection, money, never presence. Never warmth. He inhaled once, deeply. I would. Her relief was a visible exhale, shoulders loosening just slightly. But then her expression shifted, uncertainty returning. I shouldn't keep you. You're busy. Before he could answer, a man in a gray suit approached, urgency tightening his voice. Sir, we need you upstairs. There's an issue with the Long Island shipments. The world of steel and blood tugged at him again, impatient and demanding. He turned to the man. I'll be there shortly. He looked back to Aaliyah. She stepped aside instinctively, as though she were already disappearing from his world. Good luck with the recital tonight, he said quietly. Thank you, Min-Jae. Her voice wrapped around his name like a promise. He walked away. But halfway through the lobby he turned back. Aaliyah. She looked up. Send me the address. I'd like to be there. Her breath caught. Are you sure? Yes. Something lit in her eyes, a delicate, fragile joy like the first flame in darkness. I will, she whispered. When she left the building, he stood there longer than he should have, watching her silhouette vanish beneath the glass doors. Young Sue approached, expression unreadable. Boss. You're changing. No, he said. I'm remembering. That evening he sat in the back of a sleek black car, watching the city blur past like streaks of fate. He should have been at a meeting with the heads of the Korean syndicate, negotiating land control. Instead, he was heading to a school auditorium in Harlem. The absurdity of the situation was not lost on him. He was a man who had broken empires, who had survived knives at his throat and bullets aimed at his skull. He had commanded armies of men who feared no law, no authority, no death. And now he was holding a paper program printed with cartoon butterflies. The auditorium hummed with life. Children laughing, parents talking, the rustle of jackets and popcorn bags. Not a single person recognized him. Here he was no king. He was just a man sitting alone in the third row, hands resting on his knees. He didn't know whether to be relieved or unnerved by how foreign that felt. When Aaliyah entered with her daughter, he noticed them instantly. Zariah held her mother's hand tightly, skipping a little with excitement. She wore a pink dress and shiny black shoes, hair in neat braids tied with tiny bows. She was radiant. Pure joy, unscarred by the world. When she spotted him, her eyes widened. She whispered something to her mother, who looked toward him with the smallest, shyest smile. They walked over. Zariah stopped in front of him, staring with fearless curiosity. Hi, she said. Are you Mommy's friend? The word scraped something open in him. Friend. Nothing about his life had room for such a title. And yet, when he looked into her bright, trusting brown eyes, he wanted to be worthy of it. Yes, he said gently. I am. Zariah grinned. Do you want to sit with us? He nodded once. Aaliyah touched her daughter's shoulder. Let him sit where he's comfortable, baby. He's busy. But Zariah shook her head with all the pure logic of a child. But he came to see me. He met Aaliyah's eyes, and for a moment the noise of the auditorium faded. May I? He asked softly. She seemed caught off guard. Yes, of course. He moved seats, taking the place beside them. When the lights dimmed, Aaliyah's arm brushed his. Light accidental. But he felt it like a spark. As the children began to sing, Zariah scanned the audience until she found his face. When she did, she smiled, small, nervous, brave. And when her voice faltered, when fear flickered across her features, she looked at him again. He nodded once. She lifted her chin and sang louder. Aaliyah's breath caught, her hands rising to cover her mouth, tears glistening in her eyes, not from pain this time but pride. Pure, unfiltered love. He hadn't seen a moment like this in years. Perhaps ever. When the performance ended, applause thundered. Zariah ran into her mother's arms, and Aaliyah held her close, crying into her hair. Then she turned, almost embarrassed but smiling. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't do anything, he said. Yes, you did, she replied. You believed in her. He opened his mouth to speak, but a vibration buzzed in his pocket. His phone. He glanced at the screen. A message from his second lieutenant, Ji-hwan. Urgent. Problem with Marcus Hale. Call now. The warmth in his chest instantly cooled. He stepped away to answer. Talk. Boss, Ji-hwan said breathless. We intercepted communication between Marcus and a group out of East Harlem. They're planning to get back at you. They know you care about the girl. They're planning to hit where it hurts. The auditorium lights blurred. What do you mean? His voice dropped to steel. They said they'll take the kid. Time stopped. He spun toward the hallway. Aaliyah stood where he'd left her, holding Zariah's hand, smiling at something the little girl said. His pulse turned to thunder. How long do we have? He demanded. They're already nearby, Ji-hwan said. We think the attack might happen tonight. The phone nearly snapped in his grip. Get every available man to the school, he ordered. Lock down all exits. No one gets near her. We're on our way. He hung up and strode back to Aaliyah, his expression so sharp that her smile vanished immediately. What happened? She asked, voice trembling. You and Zariah need to come with me, he said. What? What's wrong? There's no time. Fear flickered across her face. Instinctively, she pulled her daughter closer. Min-Jae. Trust me, he said. The way she looked at him, fighting panic, searching his eyes for truth, felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. She nodded. He grabbed her hand, leading them toward the back exit, away from crowds. Rain hammered the pavement outside. He scanned the street, every shadow a threat. His guards approached, moving quickly. But before they reached the car, everything erupted. A black SUV screeched around the corner, tires screaming. Doors flew open. Men jumped out, masks on, guns drawn. Aaliyah screamed and pulled Zariah behind her. Too slow. One man lunged for the girl. The world exploded. Min-Jae moved before thought. Rage fueled precision. He slammed one attacker into the concrete, breaking his wrist with a twist that tore ligaments. Another came from behind. Min-Jae grabbed his gun arm and drove an elbow into his throat. The man collapsed, choking. A bullet cracked the air, grazing his shoulder. Pain ripped through him like fire, but he didn't stop. He saw Aaliyah pressed against the wall, shielding her daughter with her body. A masked man pulled her by the hair, yanking her back, reaching for Zariah. Something inside Min-Jae broke. He charged, grabbed the man's head, and slammed it mercilessly against the pavement. Blood sprayed. The man fell unconscious. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone shouted, "Fall back! Fall back!" The attackers scrambled into the SUV and sped away, engines roaring into the darkness. Silence fell. Rain pounded. The world shook. Aaliyah dropped to her knees, arms wrapped around her daughter, sobbing. He approached slowly, adrenaline still burning through him. Are you hurt? She looked up at him with wide, shattered eyes. They tried to take my baby. I won't let that happen, he said. Who were they? She demanded. What is going on? He knelt, ignoring the blood soaking through his shirt. His hands trembled as he reached out. He stopped an inch from her face, afraid to touch her without permission. This happened because of me, he said quietly. Because I protected you. Her breath shivered. What are you saying? I'm not who you think I am, he whispered. I'm not just a businessman. I'm the head of the Korean syndicate in New York. Her face drained of color. She stared at him as if he had become someone else entirely. You're a mafia, she breathed. Yes. She clutched Zariah tighter. I trusted you. You were never in danger from me, he said fiercely. Everyone is in danger around you. The words hit harder than any bullet. He swallowed. Let me take you somewhere safe. Please. She shook her head, tears drowning her voice. I don't know if I can trust you anymore. He felt something in his chest fracture open, pain sharp enough to stagger him. Look at me, he whispered. She hesitated. Slowly she lifted her eyes to his. Everything I did, he said, voice raw, I did to protect you. I would give my life before I let anyone hurt you or your daughter. Rain washed over them like baptism and ruin. For a long moment she simply stared at him, searching, trembling, breaking. Then barely audible. I'm scared. He exhaled shakily. So am I. She blinked, stunned. A mafia boss admitting fear, something the world would never believe. He reached out and touched her hand, just the lightest contact. She didn't pull away. Come with me, he whispered. Let me keep you safe. Her fingers tightened around his, not fully trusting, not fully letting go. A beginning. I'll come, she said. Lightning split the sky above them. Zariah wrapped her arms around both their hands, linking them together. And in that moment, broken, breathless, covered in blood and rain, he knew he would destroy kingdoms for them. He would burn his empire to the ground before he let the world touch them again. He was already theirs, even if they didn't know it yet. The safe house sat perched above the river, hidden behind towering rusted cranes and abandoned warehouses, an imposing fortress disguised as ruin. The car rolled through the heavy steel gate, guards unlocking it with swift precision. Floodlights cut through the rain, illuminating the path ahead. Inside the vehicle, silence thickened around them. Zariah slept curled against Aaliyah's side, exhaustion overcoming fear. Aaliyah held her close with one arm, the other hand gripping the door so tightly her knuckles whitened. Min-Jae watched her from the opposite seat. The streaks of rain chased each other across the windows, distorting the city lights into trembling smears. He had faced gunfire, betrayal, and death without blinking, but now uncertainty twisted like wire through his chest. He didn't know if he would ever earn her trust again. The car stopped. Guards opened the doors, umbrellas shielding them from the storm. Aaliyah stepped out cautiously, eyes scanning every shadow. Instinct. Survival. Strength. She was stronger than she knew. Inside, the safehouse walls hummed with quiet power. Reinforced steel, bulletproof glass, hidden armory behind art that masked danger with elegance. Yet despite the security, fear lingered in the air like a second heartbeat. He led them to a bedroom with soft light and blankets stacked neatly on the bed. Zariah stirred, blinking awake just long enough to press her face against her mother and whisper, "Mommy, are we safe?" "Yes, baby," Aaliyah said, her voice steady despite breaking inside. "We're safe now." Safe. The word struck him like an oath he hadn't yet earned. When Zariah fell asleep again, he stepped back to give Aaliyah space. She tucked her daughter under the blanket, smoothing her hair, kissing her forehead. The tenderness of it burned through him, an ache, a longing, a realization. He wanted to protect them, yes, but he also wanted to belong to them. Aaliyah stood slowly and turned toward him. The dim light caught her tear-stained cheeks, making her look both fragile and unbreakable. "You should tell me the truth," she whispered. He nodded, the weight heavy but deserved. "Ask." "Marcus," she said. "Why did he come after us?" "Because I confronted him," he answered. "I threatened him. He wanted revenge. He wanted to hurt me by hurting you." Pain flashed through her eyes. "So everything that happened today was because of you?" "Yes." "And you think that makes you a hero?" "No," he said quietly. "It makes me responsible." Her breath trembled. "Why would you risk everything for someone you barely know? For someone like me?" The question cut deep, not because it wounded him but because she believed she wasn't worth saving. He stepped closer, voice low, raw. "Because when you cried, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Because you looked at me like I was still human. Because you are the first person who made me want to be more than what I am." Tears filled her eyes again, but not like before. They weren't hopeless. They were conflicted. Searching. "I don't belong in your world," she whispered. "I want to leave it," he replied. Startled, she stared at him. He had never said the words aloud, not to his men, not even to himself. "Power makes prisoners of the people who fight hardest to hold it," he said. "I built an empire to survive. But surviving isn't living. She looked away, struggling with truth too heavy and too fragile. I can't let my daughter grow up around violence. You won't, he said. I'll end this. Tonight. Fear sharpened her voice. You're going to fight them. I'm going to finish it, he said. Min-Jae. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the storm radiating off of him. I don't know what the future looks like. But I know this. If I walk away now, they'll never stop. They'll hunt you forever. I won't allow that. Her eyes searched his face for something, maybe certainty, maybe hope, maybe sanity, and then she whispered the question that shattered him. Will you come back? The words trembled with something deeper than fear. He lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed his fingers against her cheek, gentle, reverent, careful. She leaned into his touch, eyes closing, breath unsteady. I have something worth coming back for now, he said. The air between them tightened, heavy with everything unspoken. She opened her eyes, tears clinging to her lashes like stars. Don't die, she whispered. The plea broke like glass inside him. He lowered his forehead to hers, breathing her in, lavender and rain and courage. For a suspended moment, the world disappeared. Storm quiet. Time silent. Their lips hovered a breath apart. Almost. But he pulled away first. Not yet. When they kissed, it would be whole. I'll return, he vowed. And then he left. The abandoned warehouse where the Bronx Kings hid was a cathedral of rust and broken glass. The wind screamed through cracked metal, rattling chains suspended from rotting beams. The storm raged outside. Inside, Marcus Hale waited, gun in hand, surrounded by his men. You think you can walk in here alone? Marcus laughed, voice shaking with false bravado. Min-Jae stepped into the light, rain dripping from his hair, blood still staining his shoulder. He looked like a man carved from stone. Unmovable. Unbreakable. I didn't come alone, he said. From the shadows, young Sue and his soldiers emerged, armed and silent. The warehouse trembled with tension. You touched what's mine, Marcus spat. For some woman? Is that what this is about? You're losing your edge, Han. No, Min-Jae answered. I'm gaining it. Marcus raised his gun. I'll kill you. And then I'll take the kid. That woman will learn what happens when you stand near fire. A sound escaped Min-Jae, low, lethal, not human. You won't touch them, he said, voice like ice cracking. Ever. Gunfire erupted. The warehouse exploded into chaos, bullets tearing through air, metal shrieking, bodies crashing against machinery. Min-Jae moved like water and blade, precise and brutal. Rage sharpened his vision, narrowed his focus. Young Soo took down 2 men with surgical shots. Ji-hwan dragged another into the shadows, silence punctured by screams. Marcus ran. Coward. Min-Jae followed, boots pounding against the rusted catwalk above the floor. Lightning strobed through broken skylights. Marcus stumbled toward an open ledge, slipping. No one will save you. Marcus shouted, voice hysterical. No one. Min-Jae reached him, grabbed his collar, ripped him backward. The ledge cracked under the force, metal groaning. Marcus choked, eyes wild. You think you're better than me? You're just another monster. Yes, Min-Jae said. But I choose what I destroy. He drove his fist into Marcus's jaw, sending him sprawling. Marcus reached into his jacket, pulling a small knife. You ruined everything, he screamed, lunging. Min-Jae caught his wrist, twisted, and sent the blade clattering to the floor. He pinned Marcus beneath his knee, forearm crushing his throat. This ends now, Min-Jae said. Kill me then. Marcus spat, blood smearing his teeth. Min-Jae paused. Killing Marcus would be easy. Too easy. But Aaliyah had cried because of men who believed violence proved power. He wanted to break that. No, he said. I'm not giving you peace. You'll spend the rest of your life in a cell. You'll watch everything you built rot. He stood and signaled to Ji-hwan. Take him. As Marcus was dragged away, screaming threats into the storm, silence settled. Min-Jae's hands shook. Not from violence, from the realization that he had changed. He wasn't the man he once was. He hoped she would still want the one he was becoming. When he returned to the safe house, dawn crept through the clouds, pale and gentle. His body ached. His shoulder throbbed. His heartbeat trembled with exhaustion. He opened the bedroom door quietly. Aaliyah sat awake on the bed, wrapped in blankets, watching the door like she expected death to enter. When she saw him, the breath left her in a broken sob. You came back, she whispered. He stepped inside, closing the door. I told you I would. She stood slowly, tears filling her eyes. She reached for him, then stopped, afraid to touch him without permission. He took the step she couldn't. He cupped her face with both hands, thumbs brushing her tears. You're safe, he whispered. She pressed her forehead to his chest, fingers gripping his jacket, sobbing soundlessly. For the first time in years he let someone hold him. He rested his chin against her hair, closed his eyes and breathed. After a long moment she tilted her face up to his, tears glistening on her cheeks. Her voice trembled. Why me? He answered without hesitation. Because you make me want to be the man you already believe I am. Her breath trembled. He leaned closer, slowly, giving her every chance to step away. She didn't. Her hands slid up his chest, gripping the fabric over his heart. Their lips met softly, hesitant at first, then deepening with all the fragility and fury of two broken souls finding shelter in each other. It wasn't hunger. It was home. When they finally parted, foreheads touching, breaths unsteady, she whispered, What happens now? He smiled, a real smile, rare and sincere. Now, we build something new. A life not made of fear. If you'll have me. She nodded, voice quiet but certain. Yes. Behind them, Zariah's sleepy voice drifted from the bed. Mommy? Is everything okay? Aaliyah turned, smiling through tears. Yes, baby. Everything is going to be okay. Zariah's eyes found Min-Jae. You came back. He crouched beside her, voice gentle. I promised I would. Are you staying? She asked, innocent hope shining bright. He looked at Aaliyah. She nodded. Yes, he said. As long as you'll let me. Zariah climbed into his arms without hesitation, small hands wrapping around his neck. Aaliyah rested her hand over his heart. And for the first time in his life, Min-Jae Han felt peace. Not the peace of silence after violence. Not the peace of power. The peace of belonging. The sun broke through the clouds outside, golden light spilling across the floor, warm and quiet and new. He held them both and whispered into the dawn. I'm home. Thank you for listening to the Black Single Mom apologized for spilling water, but the Korean Mafia Boss saw her tears first. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Your support means the world. Until next time, Red Heart.